uncomfortable feelings are a part of life. They help us navigate away from what we don't want and navigate towards what we do want. But if you're not processing your uncomfortable feelings, you're also not processing the joyous feelings, the loving feelings. Hey guys, it's Francisca and welcome to today's video on sitting with and processing uncomfortable feelings. This is a first video in a three-part series. In today's video, I'm going to share why it's important to process your uncomfortable feelings and sit with them, give you some tips and tools that you can use, and also share some journal prompts with you that you can download in the description box below. In the second video, I'm going to share some tarot and oracle spreads that you can use to tap into your feelings and kind of help to shift those uncomfortable feelings. And then the third video that I'll release in a couple of weeks is going to be a meditation that you can use to help you sit with and process uncomfortable feelings. So before I get into the why it's important to process your uncomfortable feelings, I kind of wanted to tell you what this video is not. This video is not about dwelling in uncomfortable feelings or bringing up old trauma so you can sit with it. This video is also not about romanticizing uncomfortable feelings, and it's also not about pitying yourself or pitying anybody else for having uncomfortable feelings. So I just wanted to get that out of the way because I know that in the spiritual world, there's a lot of bypassing and so avoidance of these uncomfortable feelings and just like moving on to the next best feeling. But today I wanted to talk about why it's important to process your uncomfortable feelings and sit with them. So speaking from experience, as somebody who has shoved her feelings deep down inside for most of her life, I understand personally why it is really can be harmful and dangerous to shove your feelings down inside and not process the uncomfortable feelings. So I wanted to get into that today. So the first reason why you want to process your uncomfortable feelings is because you don't want them to seed into your body and then there's a bigger mess for you to clean up later on. It is really unhealthy and uncomfortable and really can just lead to some dangerous places and dangerous habits when you don't process these uncomfortable feelings. Personally, for me, it led to a lot of numbing with alcohol, with marijuana, with cocaine. And for about 30 years of my life, I thought that smoking pot was just fine for me, and I was a pothead, and it was okay. And for some people it is. I don't think that there's anything wrong with marijuana or drinking or recreational drugs. But for people like me who are using it, or as I was using it to process, to avoid uncomfortable feelings and to avoid processing my feelings, it really led to some dangerous places and dangerous habits. Not just with numbing, because I would numb with anything, with busyness, overworking, overachieving, but it also leads to codependent relationships and dangerous relationships like abusive relationships. For me, that I had multiple abusive relationships that I would never go to that place again because I know how to process my feelings now. So those are reasons that you don't want to avoid your uncomfortable feelings. You want to be able to process them and sit with them. And so again, so that you don't seed that and have something in your body that you have to clean up later on that takes maybe years of therapy or lots of coaching or lots of uncovering of yourself to be able to kind of get to the truth of who you are. The second reason that you would want to process and sit with your uncomfortable feelings is so that you can build self-awareness and resiliency and self-acceptance. These are, again, really important tools. Self-awareness really helps you to notice and recognize things within yourself so that you're able to work through them And the more that you work through them, the more that you're able to notice them and work through them in the moment versus letting them, again, build up and seed inside of your body as something that you have to clean up later. You also start accepting yourself a lot more when you start noticing and recognizing and also integrating your uncomfortable feelings. And you start recognizing that that's part of life and part of the ebb and flow, which builds the resiliency in your life. So it's a really great reason to want to process your uncomfortable feelings. The other reason why it's important to process your uncomfortable feelings is that on the other side of that is so much joy and peace and ease. You're not always going to feel that way. You can't always feel joy, peace, and ease. I mean, uncomfortable feelings are a part of life. They help us navigate away from what we don't want and navigate towards what we do want. But if you're not processing your uncomfortable feelings, you're also not processing the joyous feelings, the loving feelings. Sure, you may have fleeting moments of it, but that's not going to last for a long time. And you're not going to have that baseline of joy and ease in your life, which again, you can't feel that way all the time, but you can train your mind and your body to look for those joyous and comfortable and easy feelings and navigate towards that by processing the uncomfortable feelings. When I refer to uncomfortable feelings, I'm really talking about my personal umbrella term for uncomfortable feelings. They may be different for you. And I want you to know that whatever tips and tools that I share with you today, this is based on my interpretation and my personal self-development journey. You can take what resonates and leave the rest behind. I think that it's so important to listen to yourself. So if anything I say doesn't resonate for you, just throw it away, but take the tools that do resonate and the tips that do resonate for you so that you can incorporate them in your own process. So I, at all costs, used to avoid uncomfortable feelings. First, when I was not even paying attention to my feelings, I just didn't even recognize them. And then when I started paying attention to my feelings, I really got into Abraham Hicks, and I love their teachings. But I was just like, I don't want to feel these feelings, so I'm going to avoid them at all costs. But I was just making it worse. Instead of reaching for a better feeling thought, I was pushing away the negative feelings because I didn't really understand that I could work my way up through the emotional guidance scale, as Abraham Hicks says. But I was just avoiding that. And so I know firsthand how comfortable and uncomfortable it feels to both avoid and not avoid your uncomfortable feelings. So the first step that I wanted to share with you is that you should recognize your feelings as being uncomfortable. So recognizing the feelings, as I said earlier, for me, I have an umbrella term for those feelings, but what are they for you? For somebody else, they may be feeling shy, and maybe that's an uncomfortable feeling that you're not able to process. And so processing those uncomfortable feelings starts with first recognizing. So that's the first step, is to recognize the uncomfortable feelings. How do they show up for you in your body? Where do you feel them in your body? For me, I feel uncomfortable feelings in my solar plexus or my stomach. Sometimes I feel them in my heart. Sometimes I feel them in my hips, my sacral chakra area, which makes sense because the heart chakra is all about harmony and love. The solar plexus is all about your power and your will. And your sacral chakra is all about movement, the movement and processing of feelings, the passion, pleasure, and creativity. So where do you feel that in your body? Another part in the first step of recognizing uncomfortable feelings is displaced anger and frustration and discomfort in your body. Sometimes there may be things that don't normally bother you or don't normally bother other people, and they seem like little in comparison to the situation that's going on, like blowing things out of proportion or things spilling over. And so that first step in recognizing that you're dealing with uncomfortable feelings may be that you might feel, again, that frustration. And the reason that this is important, it kind of sounds like a no-brainer, but the reason that this is important is if you have been avoiding or neglecting your uncomfortable feelings, then you might not know that your body is responding to them or that your mind is responding to them, and it may be responding in things like frustration, maybe being frustrated about little things like waiting in line, or like somebody cutting you off in traffic, or maybe having an inappropriate reaction to something. And so if you're reacting a lot, there could be that displacement happening there. So recognizing those feelings and recognizing that you're actually dealing with uncomfortable feelings is the first step. The second step is to invite those feelings in softly and slowly. You can do this in many ways, but I think that for me, when I first started doing this, I would have to find space and time to do that. So by myself, I usually wouldn't let those feelings in if I was in the middle of an uncomfortable feeling. Now I can do it a little bit more easily, where if I recognize the uncomfortable feeling, then I let it in right away. But it didn't happen overnight. So you're gonna softly let those feelings in and softly invite those feelings in. And the third step is to allow those feelings to pass through you without judgment, without any weight on the feeling, and just allow that feeling to pass through. And then the fourth step is to let yourself feel compassion and acceptance for the feeling. Extending acceptance and compassion for yourself, welcoming those feelings, allowing them to pass through, really builds the compassion, not just for yourself, but for other people too. So now I'm going to share some tools, again, my personal tools that I picked up along the way that have really helped me. So the first tool that I have is meditation. Meditation is a really great way to kind of build the skill of allowing thoughts and feelings to pass through and kind of letting yourself do that without judging them. And so meditation is a really great way to process your uncomfortable feelings. There's definitely a lot of meditations on how to do that, and I'll share one with you guys in a couple of weeks. Sometimes a silent meditation might be difficult for people, which leads me to my second tool, which is breath work. In breath work, it's kind of like an active meditation. And so two breathing techniques I'm going to share with you today are going to be conscious connected breathing and Lotus Breath. So conscious connected breathing is a really active and intense breathing technique. And you don't have to do it for a long time, but sometimes it helps to have a longer session when you're having deeper emotions and deeper feelings that you need to process that are really uncomfortable. But conscious connected breathing helps you kind of move that out of your body in a visceral and physiological way. You get to breathe it out. Your mind doesn't have time to ruminate about things, and stuff that you've been maybe holding on to really comes up in conscious connected breathing. I'll link to a video that I made for beginners for conscious connected breathing. A Lotus Breath is a really great breathing technique to use. It's more softer, and it's a more softer and gentler technique that you can use. But what you're doing is you're going outside of your body, and you're using your breath, and you're also using your hands to kind of open and close them. And I'll also link to that video here too. And then talking about moving things out of your body, movement is a really great way to process your uncomfortable feelings. Yoga poses. I love Skandasana because it really helps to kind of help me flow with my hips and help me kind of move physically those uncomfortable feelings. I also like heart openers, like fish pose is a really great pose for me to help me kind of open up and open up this heart space to kind of invite those feelings in so that I can let them run through me. And also walking is a really great way, like getting out in nature, taking your feet, or what I always say, taking your feet off, taking your shoes off and putting your feet in the grass, or toes in the sand, or toes in the dirt. Gardening, that's a really great way to kind of process those uncomfortable feelings too. Because you're really kind of moving and grounding yourself, and getting out in nature really helps to process those uncomfortable feelings. So talking it out is another tool that I use for processing uncomfortable feelings. You can talk it out with a professional like a coach or a therapist, or you can talk it out with a trusted friend or family member that you know is going to be able to support you and give you space to process those feelings and kind of sit with them. Another way to do it is to talk it out with yourself through journaling. I do something that's called morning pages, where you do 3 pages of just unfiltered brain dumping first thing in the morning. It takes me about 45 minutes to an hour, and I have my my morning pages book here. This is humongous. It's bigger than my head. It's 600 pages. I started this in February, and I'm like on page like 460 now. And so you can ask for help from yourself, from the universe. That's always a really great way to do it. You can talk it out with your tarot cards or your oracle cards. And again, next week I'm going to share some oracle and tarot spreads that you can use, so you can tap into your feelings and process those uncomfortable feelings. And speaking of journaling, journal prompts are really great questions to kind of get yourself going so that you can process your feelings, especially if you're not able to do it internally. Sometimes having an outward focus is great. So I'm going to share those journal prompts with you here. And as I said earlier, you can click in the description box below so you can get your journal prompt that you can print out and write out your feelings. So here are your journal prompt questions. What do I think will happen if I feel these uncomfortable feelings? Where do I feel these uncomfortable feelings in my body? And how can I support myself through these uncomfortable feelings? What is it that I need? And how can I give myself those things that I need to process these uncomfortable feelings? So I hope you enjoyed it. As always, take what resonates and leave the rest behind. And if you have any comments or have any tools that you'd like to share, please do so in the comments. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.